What's going on, Tamers? So this video is going to be a little bit different than my normal stuff. I wanted to do an analysis of the Digimon card game itself, just because I either see like longtime fans of the game or people who are interested in the game wondering, hey, is this game going to be around for a long time? Like, what's the competitive scene like? What are the, what's the game itself like? And I feel like I should just make one video to address all of that in one go. With that said, whether you've been playing the game for a long time or you're looking for something new, maybe a new card game to jump into, and Digimon caught your interest, then hopefully this video is useful for you guys. So this analysis is going to be pretty straightforward. I'm just going to do a simple SWOT analysis, taking a look at some points where the game is really strong, a couple of its weaknesses, and then looking externally toward the actual card game market, some of the opportunities Digimon has, as well as a couple of the threats that it faces in the future. So full disclosure, if you don't know already, then let me be the first one to tell you, I'm a pretty big fan of the game. If you were to ask me, hey, should I keep playing this game for the future, or should I pick this game up as a new game that I'm going to play, my heart will always say yes. But what I've tried to do to distance myself from that is to do a bunch of research, and hopefully all of my answers come from here rather than here. So yeah, just want to get that out there. With that out of the way, let's first take a look at some of the strengths of the Digimon card game. So strengths, this is probably the most anecdotal the video is going to get, and that's because whenever I ask people why they started playing Digimon in the first place, the answer I get is almost unanimously the resource system, because Digimon's resource system is probably unlike anything you've ever experienced before, and I mean that in a good way. Whereas most games like Magic or Pokemon, you have to draw out and use resources that way, Digimon gives you all the resources you need at your fingertips immediately from turn 1. This comes in the form of the memory system, or originally called the Chrono Clash system, developed by a fellow by the name of Ryan Miller. For folks who don't know who Ryan Miller is, he's like a 20-year vet of the gaming industry. He worked in Wizards of the Coast's R&D team for 10 years. He was the lead designer for Duel Masters, an insanely popular game over here in Japan. And he was also, again, the one who created this system. But I digress. The memory system is probably the one reason I think most people stick around the Digimon card game. That's because it is so fun. You have the option of just give your opponent a ton of resources at any moment by making a big play yourself. Or if you want to go the route of eking out a small advantage turn over turn to find victory, that's also an option. And to go along with that, this opens up the game for lots and lots of different playstyles, and Digimon definitely offers that. They have everything from, big brain combo decks to little brain smork decks to super defensive decks that are focused on milling your opponent out, and everything in between. And also, it's pretty cheap to get into. Because I live in Tokyo, my experience is only in the Japan market, but the game is very cheap here. But I've also heard players abroad talk about how cheap the game is compared to other things. So if you want a game that's not going to break the bank or your wallet, then Digimon might be the right choice. So now that I've talked about some of the strengths of the game itself, I want to talk about some of the strengths of the game in the market currently for card games as a whole. According to a spring report by the website ICV2, which is a site that is focused on trends in the gaming industry, not just video games, but all kinds of games, card and board included, Digimon is ranked number 5 in terms of card game sales overall. Of course, the first big 3 being Pokemon, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, but then right below those are One Piece, a game also developed by Bandai, and then right under that is Digimon. So if you're looking for an alternative outside of the big 3, then Digimon is a great choice. And to hear the praises of Digimon sales from the horse's mouth itself, at the end of their fiscal year, Toei put out a business report, and they specifically noted, which is, again, super rare here, they said that the Digimon card game is performing incredibly well in the North American markets. Well, you're probably wondering, well, East, that's great to hear that the game has good sales, but how does that help me in the analysis of the game itself? Well, using some business logic here, it's pretty straightforward that if something is selling well, then you invest more time and resources into it to keep those sales up. So with that being said, unless Bandai uses some wacko business logic, then we can expect the game to have more resources put into it in the future. Alright, so let's talk weaknesses. The first one is probably the most universal one that's echoed not only in North America, South America, Europe, but also in Japan and Asia itself. And that is that the pricing support for the game is incredibly poor right now. When you take a look at games like Magic or Pokemon, they have these large tours set up for the course of the year, and the prizings are up to top 32. There's also lots of really cool collector things you can win, which have tons of value in themselves. It's easy to see why there's a lot of motivation to play these games at a competitive level. And this compensation seems very fair. Players invest their time, money, and resources into, buying the product, practicing the game, and also taking days off work and scheduling the time they can go to the large-scale events to actually compete. But a feeling that has been echoed across the Digimon card game universe right now is that, for all of my time, effort, resources spent in the game, just getting a cardboard deck box for going to a large-scale event is kind of sad, honestly. Pricing includes things like special event packs that just have alternate artworks for cards that are already in existence. Some of the champion packs just have cards with already existing artwork in the game that just have the word champion stamped on them, as well as I think a winner of an event gets a playmat, so there's that. But again, the resale value of a lot of these items is already pretty low. There's no cash payouts, and so it doesn't really feel like there's a good compensation for all of the effort you spend competing in the game. To motivate players to keep competing in the game, Bandai needs to make a big change, not only in one region, but across the board for its pricing support for the game. Another weakness that I want to touch on is that Bandai itself as a company has limited time and resources on its end. And because they are also releasing multiple card games at the same time, card games like Union Arena out here in Japan, One Piece universally, as well as Digimon, they have to balance those 3 games and their focuses on them. And while I don't know privately how Bandai is handling these 3 games or balancing them, I think we can make some pretty sound inferences based off of their public actions. All that to say that I think it's pretty obvious that Bandai is heavily supporting the One Piece card game, and I don't know how much is left over for the rest of the games out there. And while I don't think this is going to make a huge impact to folks listening abroad, I think if you're living in Japan, then you kind of understand the gravity of the situation. And that is, earlier this year, Bandai put out a teaser for, oh, there's some big news coming for the One Piece card game. And while a lot of folks thought this was going to be something in-game, it was actually just a teaser for their new spokesperson for their commercials, who is a high-profile actor by the name of Shun Oguri. Again, outside of Japan, I don't think that really makes much of an impact, but again, Shun Oguri is a high-profile actor in Japan. This guy could not have come cheap. I cannot imagine a world where big budgets were not spent in him becoming their official spokesperson for the One Piece card game. That's not to say that Digimon isn't without its own merit. Again, Digimon has its own anime franchise behind it, but right now, it's in a really weird place. They just wrapped up the Ghost Game anime, which I don't think got a second season. They're doing this really weird web novel called Digimon Seekers, which is I think monthly, and the official translations for that are shoddy at best, and it shows a lack of time, resources, and energy being put into the Digimon franchise as a whole. So while we're looking at the efforts that Bandai was putting into each of their card games, it definitely shows that One Piece is definitely getting more eggs in his basket than the others. Alright, so now let's take a look externally and look at some of the opportunities for the game. The first one being the card game market itself is booming. In 2020, where I thought that card games, physical card games anyway, would be on the sharp decline, the exact opposite happened. There was this strange boom of card games. Tons of games were released, sales went through the roof, and according to Zion Market Research, a company which does, as its namesake implies, market research on different industries, they believe that the card game industry is only set to grow the next couple of years. They predicted somewhere around 5 to 7% compound annual growth, which is not a small number at all. So again, as far as card games themselves are concerned, Digimon stands to gain a fair share of this pie. Another interesting tidbit that they shared in this report is that card games' fastest growing demographic is actually teenagers. And right now, Digimon, I think their main demographic is mostly folks in their early 20s to early 30s, somewhere between there. If Bandai wants to expand the lifespan of their game, then they're going to need to attract a younger audience. And with a ton of digital media behind it in the form of TV shows, video games, and more, they have a great opportunity here. And so let's finally take a look at some of the threats. This first threat is honestly the double-edged sword of success, and that is that because the card game market itself is booming, there are so many choices that it's hard for one game to stand out. When you have the big 3 in Pokemon, Magic, and Yu-Gi-Oh, which are pretty much household names at this point, and then you have some of the newcomers also having incredibly strong brand awareness, things like One Piece as well as Disney's Lorcana, I think Digimon really struggles to find its footing here. The second threat here is probably not only a threat to Digimon, but also all games in this industry, and that is collectible card games. Collectible card games, or games you can play on your phone, or on your PC or whatever, have a much lower barrier to entry. A lot of these games offer free-to-play models, which is incredibly attractive to players who don't have the spending power that you might have, in your 20s and your 30s. Also, there's no worry about having to collect, store, and manage the condition of actual physical cards, because electronic cards are just pieces of data. I know I can't be the first person to have heard someone say, hey, Digimon card game sounds really cool. Does it have a mobile version or a collectible card game version? And when you tell people no, that turns a lot of them off very quickly. That's not to say that there's not the chance for an actual CCG version of the Digimon card game, but honestly, I don't think it'd be the same thing. And so that's where I'm going to wrap this video up. I just wanted to present all the facts I could find out there, and then I'll allow you, the viewer, to come up with your own conclusion here based off of all the evidence I've presented. Just to recap on some of the things we covered in this video, again, some of the strengths for the game. Fantastic gameplay experience, really good sales, pretty cheap to get into. Some of the weaknesses here, again, current pricing support leaves a lot to be desired. Bandai is publicly supporting its other IPs much more heavily, which means those dollars and effort and time can't go into the Digimon card game itself. Also, the opportunities for the game. Again, card games are growing, and not by a small amount. The physical card game market is growing a lot, and is expected to continue growing for the next 10 years. Additionally, Digimon has an entire media empire behind it in the form of television shows, video games, merchandising, and more, which they can definitely leverage to attract a younger audience. And then some of the threats for the game, again, the card game market is saturated. There's a lot of options to choose from, and it's hard to stand out from some of the big ones already out there. Additionally, CCGs with a free-to-play model do provide a more enticing offering for younger consumers, and that is unfortunately the same player base that Bandai needs to attract for the Digimon card game to keep the game going. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think I missed anything in my SWOT analysis? I'd love to hear from you guys as well. Also, let me know if this is something you guys are interested in. I feel like it's a bit more businessy and less about the actual like gameplay itself, but I thought it was an interesting topic nonetheless. And I feel like with the amount of people I hear saying, oh, is this game good or is this game dying? I think one of these videos is warranted at some point. Anyways, folks, I'm gonna get out of here. Before you get out of here, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.